Welcome to the show. Today, Jenny Radcliffe is a burglar for hire. She's a professional con artist, an expert in nonverbal communication, deception, and persuasion techniques. She's an ethical social engineer, a people hacker, a human hacker, hired to smash security measures using psychology, con artistry, subliminal linguistics, cunning, and guile. She's spent a lifetime learning how to use the human element to gain access to buildings, data, and information. She's a really interesting conversationalist. I'm definitely going to have her back on the show here, but in the meantime, enjoy this episode here on the Jordan Harbinger Show with Jenny Radcliffe. Jen, your life started as quite the extraordinary tale. You said you grew up on the streets of Liverpool in the 1980s. Is that kind of like, is Liverpool the Detroit of the UK? What am I supposed to understand from that?
So Liverpool is it's a famous city, you know, it's famous for soccer or football, if you want to use the correct term. Mm-hmm. And the Beatles, and you know, and that used to be it. And then when I was a kid, it was a city kind of on its knees. There was a lot of crime and unemployment. So yeah, I guess at the time, you would have said that, you know, not a lot to do. Very politicized city, you know, very rebellious city. And there just wasn't a lot of opportunity, really. And now it's fabulous, you know, there's so much going on in Liverpool now. But at the time, yeah, it was pretty downtrodden, I guess.
It seems like a lot of UK cities are like, that people that I know in the UK, they're like, yeah, I live in a coal town or I live in a manufacturing town. It almost seems like y'all had the same type of environment as the Midwest United States outside of London, where it's like we make air conditioners here, we mine for coal here, and that's not doing so well in the global age of everything being made in China, Mexico.
Yeah, we're docks, so Liverpool was the docks. So so we would be the type of cities that we would align with in the UK would be sort of Belfast, Glasgow, Newcastle. So tough people, working class people, tough people. And it's the sort of place where you have to adapt to that life. There wasn't a lot of money, so yeah. It makes me sound like a Monty Python. There's a Monty Python sketch. It's like we had it tough, but it was, you know, it was that type of place, and there wasn't, you know, one thing I always say is you shouldn't underestimate a kid with no money and a lot of time and a brain. Mm-hmm. And that was the problem. You know, we had those things in abundance. You know, we were bored. We were quite smart, as it turned out. We wouldn't have known it then. And we had time on our hands, and so you get into mischief, right?
Well, okay, I want to hear about that mischief, but also it seems like you were abducted as a child,
yeah,
and that was kind of a turning point. And I'm starting to think that maybe I should just have a general rule on the show, because I find that most of the coolest people have been abducted a minimum of one time.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Well, as a child, so I was playing out in the street with my friend, and we were really little, 7 or 8 years old, and there was this neighbour who just said, you know, you guys must be thirsty, come in for a drink, you know, of orange juice. And we went in, and then my little friend left. And then this neighbour didn't let me go, and didn't let me go for a long, long time. And this is like, you know, 1980, 81, a long time before some of the kind of mass sharing of some of these, you know, terrible crimes, really. And everyone was kind of, sort of like we went out to play in the streets, in the neighborhood, first thing in the morning, and you came back at night, you know, when it starts to go dark, or, you know, at dinner time. But if you didn't come back, no one really cared. And so I was gone for about 9 or 10 hours, and I wasn't, I wasn't physically hurt, but it was a woman, and she wouldn't let me go. And she made me kind of, I hate saying this, I still feel very embarrassed kind of saying it, really, but she made me dance, and she wouldn't let me stop. And I was only really little kid. This is a grown adult. She was about 17, 18 years old, and she just wouldn't. And what happened was, I got gradually more and more frightened. She wouldn't let me go to the bathroom. She wouldn't let me do anything. I got more and more frightened. I kind of just, there was something in her face, and I've seen it since. I've seen it as an adult. I've seen it when I've tracked, you know, criminals and people that I've kind of interviewed that have turned out to be bad people. And I just knew I wasn't safe. I knew she was never going to let me go. And I felt that, like, I just felt so small. And so then there was a knock at the door, and my mum had sort of done a few inquiries and knocked, and she said, you know, is Jenny there? Her friend said that you were the last person that saw her. And I was sort of right by the door, and she put her hand over my mouth, and she just said, no, I've not seen her. And I knew in that moment, if I didn't do something, that she'd kill me. I mean, I just knew that she was going to really do me harm.
Uh-huh.
So I got hold of her little finger and pulled it back, which I was taught later by a lot of my connections. That's a really powerful thing to do, but I just did it. And I shouted my mum. And mum grabbed me and let me go. But the thing is, because it was the 70s, nothing was ever said. You know, the police weren't called. I have friends who had sort of similar experiences with bad people as children, shall we say. It just was never spoken about in the neighbourhood. All I know was she moved out. A few months later, the house was empty. No one knew where they'd gone. But I knew in that moment, when there was that front door between me and my mum, I just thought, if I get out of this, I'm never going to be that helpless again. I'm just not. I'm going to make sure. Like, I remember thinking that little childhood brain, if I was a superhero, this wouldn't be an issue. And I'm going to, if I live, I'll be a superhero. And I think it was just a huge turning point, because after that, my family let me hang out more with my extended family, most of whom were my cousins, who were, you know, older lads, who taught me a lot of sort of street smarts and things like that. And they'd never let me hang out with them before, but I think they realised I needed some help with the way I handle things.
This is like so creepy. That's so creepy that this person was doing that. I mean, I when you said 17, I was like, oh, she's like messing with you, and she's a little bit weird and like a bored teenager. But then when your mom comes over, you think she'd be like, yeah, she's right here. We were just playing. Here you go. Bye. You know. But if she puts her hand over your mouth, it's like, oh, I'm gonna get chopped into little pieces.
She really pushed me. You know, this is a grown adult pushed me right against the wall.
Yeah.
Like, really. I mean, I just knew she really did intend me harm. And of course, the fact that they left soon afterwards, nothing was ever said, you know? Nothing was ever said.
Are you sure nothing was said? Or did they just not tell you that, like, your dad went over there and was like, I'm going to break all of your limbs?
So I asked my mom often about it, once or twice, and she said, you know, it was the 70s. It was a woman. I mean, you know, you seem fine. And she said if he'd have told your dad, he'd have killed her.
Yeah.
But I asked my brother, who's a lot older than me. My brother's 18 years older than me, and he said, and I'm writing it down, you know, because I'm writing some memoirs and things for different projects. And he said, until I read this, I didn't even know. So even my brother didn't know.
That's mind blowing. As a parent of a 1-year-old,
I know.
If I'd found out somebody in the neighborhood didn't let him go for even a couple of hours, I would not only get the police involved, but I'd tell my wife, like, Jen, you have to talk me down right now, because I'm about to go and lose my absolute shit and destroy this person.
But like, this is the 70s.
Unbelievable.
You'll see social media posts about what it was like to be a kid in the 70s. And the fact that we never wore sun cream and bicycle helmets and stuff. I guess I always feel that it was in that vein. But it definitely solidified a determination in me never to be that helpless again, I think.
We left one of our neighbor kids alone with a neighbor guy to play video games. And my friend, his older brother, didn't want to leave him. Took him back like a few minutes later. And then we found out that he had gone over there another time without anyone's permission, and the guy molested him.
See?
Yeah.
But you see, what Mum said to me was, this was we had a case in the UK of a little toddler that was killed called Jamie Bulger, which is right near, it was exactly where I grew up. But Mum said, like, it was pre all that, you know, it wasn't as prevalent now. The knowledge of how bad that could have turned out just wasn't a thing, and they just didn't follow it up at all. I mean, at all.
God.
I mean, I
So
remember
weird.
like next day after, playing in the same place, seeing that person walking around, just thinking, I'll avoid her.
That
Such
is
a close shame.
beyond bizarre. I mean, it's just that she's clearly like mentally ill and
violent. I mean, there was violence. I mean, she hurt me when she put her hands over my head, over my face. She did hurt. It did hurt, and I remember being very, very frightened. But it was a lucky escape, and a lot less traumatic than a lot of people get. So I count myself lucky at that one.
So all right, so you're hanging out with your cousins, and they're like these street kids who are what are they doing? Because when I think street kids, I think spray painting things, or I don't know, shoplifting candy. I don't know. I'm pretty amateur when it comes to street kidness.
So the main thing that we did was in the neighborhood. So I said the way Liverpool was, there was a lot of empty buildings, empty factories, empty buildings at the docks and that type of thing. And what they did a lot of was just hung out in those buildings. So, they'd be locked. There'd be some alarms sometimes. And they just get into the buildings and hang out in these buildings. Sometimes, I'm thinking about it now. We have barbecues and things in these abandoned warehouses in Liverpool. And the first time I ever really remember, and I tell the story a lot, was I had all these dreams and things about lions. I was really little, and I sort of had these dreams about lions. And there was a zoo. Lions, yeah.
Okay, with the animal.
As in the big feline.
Okay.
And I said, I really want to go and see if the lion in this zoo, which was in a seaside town really nearby, does he sleep at night, ironically? I think I must have heard the song. I don't know. But I wanted to know if it was locked away. And they just
the
suggest,
lion?
Yeah.
So you weren't sure if the lion was locked up?
I sort of wondered if it had a giant lion hutch, like a rabbit, or whether they let it roam around. Well, it turns out they let it roam around, right? But we got into the zoo, no alarms, no security guards. Nothing. I am just over the fence. They actually pushed me, sort of threw me over. I was really small. And they went and walked around this zoo and just looked around. We weren't stealing anything or breaking anything. It was just trespass, but it was trespass. And I knew where this lion was. I'd been with my parents, and I walked over to the cage. And I had a Sesame Street torch, a little Sesame Street torch, and I was shining it looking for the lion. I'd seen it, a couple of weeks before with my parents. And it flew at the cage, and the cage was really thin. This zoo was closed down for animal rights abuses not long after. It was a terrible place. And, it flung itself at the cage, and we all ran out, screaming and laughing. And you think about it, and so we started to do things like that. And it didn't put me off. Why would it put you off, really, being chased by a lion?
Yeah, when you say chase, did it sort of walk up to you, or was it oh, I'm going to eat you for lunch?
It was in a cage, but the cage was more or less chicken wire, and it flung itself. I shined the torch, and it wasn't, I was like, I can't see anything, it's dark. And I moved it another inch, and its face was right there, and I was right by the cage, so I could smell its breath. Its breath smelled like chicken soup, and I could smell its breath. And then it just pushed against this cage, and the fence bent, and it just was terrifying. And we ran, and my cousins are all laughing and everything. And I'm far behind because I was so tiny. But it didn't put me off. I kind of liked it, and so then it was the case.
You got a little thrill.
Well, I guess so. And then after that, it was because we got away, right?
Right. All's well that ends well, I guess, when you're that age.
And then after that, it was well, where else can we go? So we got into museums and spent the night in museums.
Did everything come alive?
No, but when that film came out, I said to people, this is horrible. This is so real to me, that was what we wanted to happen, but it didn't.
Right.
And we spent some time we spent one night, we got into a funeral parlor. We wanted to see a body.
About as unexciting as it gets, but also really creepy.
Well, it's that Stand By Me thing. You're a teenager and you think you want to see a body. You don't. And we got there, and it wasn't in a fridge or anything. It was just on the table.
Well, it was probably already embalmed, right?
I don't know. Because I just remember we pulled this sheet, and there it was, and we screamed the place down, and then we ran to we snuck in and hid under a delivery hatch, and we couldn't get out. We were stuck there all night in the same room with the body.
Serves you right, honestly.
Yeah, because it's very disrespectful, right? But whatever. And it just went from there. I broke into it became a badge of honor that we wouldn't like. I wouldn't pay to get into festivals like Glastonbury and things like that. We'd always I'd taught my way in, and then my cousins were older than me, and they started to work in the nightclubs and the bars and things in Liverpool. And they told me if I wanted to make some money, I could help. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be security. So one of the things they said was, you can sell these tickets. It's for a special event at this bar. And say the tickets were $10. Okay. They'd say, like, you can keep 5 and we'll keep 5. So what you have to do is go and sell the tickets. And it was like a VIP ticket. So, use this ticket on Friday and you get a drink, VIP access, whatever. And I sold loads of them. I sold about 300 of them. And then they said, great, gave me the money, took their share, fine. They said, just don't go to that party though. It's a bit weird. You sold the tickets. I was like, fine. And then of course I did. I wanted to walk past and see. And I get to the bar and there's like a fight going on. There's huge amounts of people milling outside the bar. And of course there's no VIP event. The tickets were just fake. And I'd sold loads of them and it was just fake.
Oh, gosh. So you were kind of an unwilling participant.
Well, I was that time. And then they taught me a few cons and by the time I was, sort of 18, I was pulling little cons all over the city. Nothing huge and nothing where, there was kind of, I say nothing with direct contact, but nothing that I'd thought up myself. I just worked with, because my cousins were like heroes to me. I loved them, and I didn't expect that they were really doing anything that was dangerous or wrong. But then,
like, it didn't occur to you that was wrong because your cousins were nice people in your mind.
I think I knew it was at some level, but I didn't see that it was particularly harmful until. So they used to ask me to pick up packages. So they used to say, "Can you deliver this and that?" And this one time I picked up this package. I've never spoken about this before, but I picked up this package and I had to pick it up at a bar and then take it across the city. This is all coming away from college, right? It was in university, and drop it off at another location. And when I put it on the floor and sort of waved to the guy and put thumbs up, there's the package, it clanked and it was metal. And at that point, I kind of thought, this is probably actually criminal. And I kind of stepped back from it at that point, at that point.
Wow. So, yeah. What do you think was in the package?
There was a gun.
Yeah, for sure, right?
For sure.
You kind of know, right, when something is this, because there's just not that many things that are like that size, that weight, that are kind of sketchy.
Right. And this is England, but I'd already been to a pistol club. I'd still there probably in Liverpool on our dock road, and I'd felt it and I felt the power of it and I hated it. It was really frightening to me. And I knew what it sounded like. There's not, like you say, there's nothing that's got the same shape and clink. And then it wasn't that everything swam into view, because I knew really at some level. But at that point, I was kind of moving away from it all anyway. I was getting jobs of my own volition by then.
What do they do now, your cousins?
Okay, so that's, they're not around.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm not saying how they're not around, but they're not around. No.
Right. Okay. Well,
which is kind of predictable.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, I just thought it's going to go one of two ways, right? They're either locked up, or it's going to be like, oh, he's fine. He just snapped out of it and he's a kindergarten teacher now, and the other guy works at a daycare.
Yeah, no. Well, for one of them, things went really well, but we can't say what they do, and the other one not so well, and then neither of them are available. Otherwise, I wouldn't talk about it, right?
Yeah, he was only the prime minister for a short time.
Yeah, no.
So, it's funny. You can't say what he does because he's in a public position, or because he's in a sort of, or something like that. Is that why?
It was connected with security.
Okay, I wondered about that. Like, maybe he's got a security clearance. Doesn't want people to know he's been schlepping guns around Liverpool.
I mean, gone. They're just not around anymore.
Interesting. Well, sounds
very enigmatic. But that's true. But by then, by the time we got to that, I was already working jobs on my own by then, like legitimately. So you're
building this skill set. What is the skill set what does it entail, right? Like, what are you learning? You're learning how to break into places. So physical infiltration skills.
Yeah.
What else?
I think I was because what happened was we'd started to do some legitimate work for high net worth individuals in the area, and the only people who had any money really in that area at the time was soccer players for two football teams, Liverpool and Everton. These soccer players had these huge homes that were in the like more affluent areas of the city. And so I wasn't used to like, force doors open and things like that. What they asked me to do was see if I could talk my way in. So could I, knock and see their girlfriends or their housekeepers or the, anyone and try and get in that way. And then I could let them in. So I could leave a door open, a window open, then the boys would come in. And they'd do this full security assessment and breach the security and then say to them, this is how we did it. And if we can do it, a criminal can do it, a burglar can do it, someone can get into your building. And that's really what, how it kind of panned out.
So you're saying like, oh, I really have to use the restroom, and the housekeeper's like, oh, she's an 18-year-old girl.
I used to say things like I was coming to measure for blinds or...
Yeah, so you come and measure for blinds, and just the housekeeper just doesn't know someone's supposed to show up and measure for blinds.
No, and I look so innocent, I was just, honestly, even now, no one ever suspects me of being a criminal. It's one of the biggest things that I teach is that, a criminal, a hacker just doesn't necessarily look the way you think they're going to look. This isn't Hollywood. And I could talk to anyone and be really friendly. And just started to get, so we did some of their homes and then they have businesses. We started to get into the businesses, but by then the boys weren't as interested. And I started to do it on my own. And the skills were, I guess, influence, persuasion. I was reading books on like anthropology and stuff. This is long before you could sort of do courses on body language and non-verbal comms, which I do now. But I was reading stuff about the way people behaved and performed and trust and things like that. And I guess that's the skill set is I was always really interested in people. I always felt that people had stories and because I was interested, people would talk to me. And then it was just a case of really acting and going with having a plan, but improvising that plan. And in the early days, that was all I really did. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't plan it the way we plan a job now, but it just worked. And then I used to write up the reports and we'd hand it and they would say, you need to do this, this and this. And, I was starting to get paid, like at the time, really serious amounts of money for just a student, just a kid, for helping the guys out. But the boys weren't interested in doing it for much longer. And so I ended up working jobs on my own.
So what was this like? How do you even get clients? You just go to a rich person and you're like, I bet I could break into your house. No, how does it even work? These
days, it's much the same these days really as it was in the beginning. In the beginning, it was word of mouth. Nobody did this. I was surprised even, a decade ago when I found out people did it for a living, because it was just, this is a set of skills. This is something you can do. And I got one job off a guy who knew the family and just asked me if I could get into an office in Liverpool and just take a address book from a desk. Could I take that address book out of the desk and give it to him? And he said that, the company wanted me to do that. If I could do that, I could have done anything. So could I do that before a certain date? And I said, yeah, I'll call the boys, I'll call the cousins. And he knew my family. And he said, do you really need them? And I went, actually, probably no, not for that one. Why do I need them, really? And so I went in and did like a little reconnaissance, and I could see it was going to be, I thought it was going to be fairly straightforward, and I just did it. I just went and got this address book, and I didn't even think to have a contract in place or anything, or to check that this was a legitimate job and that this guy was legit. I just assumed that if he knew the family, that it was all legal and approved. And I went and got this book, and there's a long story behind it, but I went and got it. And once I did that, I was getting a job probably once a month for a while. And then it gradually got, I got more and more of them. They got, I was started off in Liverpool, then they moved to London. And this is all the time I was doing my degree. So my first degree. and then getting a job and then sort of doing this job. And I never for a minute thought that this would be my career. And I never even spoke about it, really. Once the boys had carried on doing their thing and I kind of grew apart from them, I didn't tell anyone. I just saw it as a fries on the side, something that got me money occasionally.
A side hustle. Yeah. It's like you're working from home. It's just other people's homes.
Yeah.
How do you know that what you were taking belonged rightfully to the person? Like, no, we're just testing our security. How do you know you just weren't stealing things for other people that were private?
So I think in the beginning I didn't. And I think I was really, really lucky because that first job that came in, I still know that client. And although I can't say exactly what he is and what he does, I know that he's a legitimate person. But sometimes he needs something like that doing. And that's all I know, and mostly I think I don't believe that I actually took things illegally very often.
Sure, yeah, because I can kind of imagine, like, all right, we know this guy keeps his bank routing numbers and his, whatever codes in this moleskin gray notebook that he keeps in his desk. Yeah, I just want you to go in and see if you can get, I don't know, let's see, I've got a notebook laying around in there. Why don't you see if you can grab that and then bring it to me as proof? And then suddenly somebody's like, somebody broke in, took my notebook and drained my bank accounts. Yeah,
well, there was one job that definitely was that. But again, the client was someone who is a good payer, one of the good guys. And that was a very dangerous thing that happened, and it was exactly that. It was, I was told that the target was someone who didn't think his security could be breached, and all I had to do was get into the house, get to his desk, and look in an address book. And if there was a certain number in the address book, I was to leave a message on the desk. It was pre-written. And if that number wasn't in the address book, I had to get out. And while I was in the office, completely empty house, this was in Asia, office was completely empty, house was completely empty. And it was fine, and I picked it up and I found it and I left a message. And whilst I was in the house, a team of security guards, not police, not legitimate, turned up outside with the cars running, with the engines running, and I had to run away and get out. And I knew, and they were armed, and they looked like they had no sense of humour. And I kind of thought, this is not legitimate. This is a burglary. I've been hired to do this, and if they catch me, I can't talk my way out of this. I can't smile. They've got guns and everything, and they were looking for a burglar, and I was right there. I didn't get out, like I was actually outside the house, but hiding in the garden, and I saw them looking for me. Their car, I had really long hair and a braid down my back, and their car actually reversed over the end of the braid. I was that close. I was trying to sneak around it, and I sort of reached behind, like this, and my hair didn't give. It probably would have done if I'd have really pulled it, but I knew that movement, my white arm against the shadow, so I couldn't move it. And I knew like if they caught me, I was dead, and no one knew I was there. And I asked the client afterwards when I was back home in England, and I said, I said, did anyone know what it was? And that wasn't, I was on my own, wasn't I? That wasn't legitimate. And the client said, of course it wasn't.
Really?
And I retired for 18 months after that, and I said I'm not doing anything like that ever again. And I said I wasn't going to do it because I thought I was going to be killed.
For sure. How did they justify doing that to you without letting you know?
National security.
That's what they said, huh?
Yeah.
National security. They don't have other people that like are trained a little bit in, I don't know, with suicide pills or something.
Wouldn't you think? Right.
Yeah.
So
send someone with diplomatic cover to go do that crap, man.
But that's not always how it works. And sometimes I think what happened was I was just, so expendable.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just good at it and just there. I was in the right place at the right time, good at what I did. They knew I could do it. And I think I just know that I would never have, would never have been heard of again. I'd have just gone missing on a business trip, because it was on a business trip. This was the thing. At the time, a lot of those really dangerous jobs came in, and there were lots of them. I was doing a normal job. I had a normal career. a legitimate career as a procurement manager of all things for Fortune 500 companies. And I was the only reason I was in Asia was because I was negotiating electromechanical contracts for things like leaf springs and capacitors, if anyone knows what they are, with suppliers.
I don't know what leaf springs are, but I know what capacitors are.
Flat spring. It wasn't nearly as exciting as the other things I did. And I think
it doesn't sound as exciting, yeah.
And that's why... I think that's why I kept on taking those jobs. But I mean, after that, I retired. I said, that's it. I'm hanging up my guns. I'm not doing anything like this for another, ever. But in my mind, it was 18 months when I didn't do anything, and I didn't answer calls or anything. But I missed it,
Sure.
And by then it was legitimate and important work.
And then they thought you were just so busy because you were good at your job, right? She's not even answering. She's so busy.
I don't know what they thought. I've never thought about what they thought. I just had to hide for a while and recover from it because I was very frightened. Like you said, I'm not trained to do it.
No. So how did you go legit? I know you've broken into banks, stadiums, theme parks, which sounds really dangerous.
That was terrible. More dangerous. The theme park was... So I had a few of these. I ended up sort of specialising because after the zoo experience, then I can really like the entertainment industry and the leisure industry. And I, word of mouth and everything again. And I got asked to look at this theme park at night. Obviously, we went in at night to see if we could get into, because the idea being that if someone could get behind sabotage the rides, the roller coasters and things, could you get in, test the security? It was standard, really. Mm-hmm. But then the security guards heard us or saw us or something, but they started coming after me. And I had a crew with me at this point. There was about 4 of us. And I went and hid, and where's the best place to hide? And I'm not joking. I think it's just a morbid thing. I hid inside the ghost train in the tunnels.
The what? The ghost train?
Yeah.
Is that like a popular ride
somewhere? Like the horror, the roller coaster, but with skeletons and things. It's like...
I'm sure we have stuff like that. It's like, you know what a Small World ride is, where the little dolls are singing? Have you seen that? Super famous? No. I'm guessing this is... So is it like a haunted train ride?
Haunted horror train thing. And I just went... Which normally, under normal circumstances, is very funny. Plastic skeletons and...
Yeah.
But not when... you're on your own at night. And I had to wait there for ages and ages, hours, till the security guards left. But so there was loads of different places. That wasn't the scariest. The scariest was I had to get into an office, and it was a huge building with probably 200-300 bedrooms in it. I can't really say what it was. It was
bedrooms in the office?
Yeah, it's an educational facility, where students sleep, but then there's this whole...
So it's a dormitory?
Yeah, kind of, but out of term time. But there was about 400 bedrooms, massive, and no one else in the building. And there's something so strange and frightening about being the only person in the building. And I was in this, and I knew I was the only person, and I had a team watching the security team. And I had to walk around, and I got in a room, the door shut, couldn't open the door, locked in a room, and I could hear like glasses breaking, doors slamming all down the corridors, and there was no one else there. It was horrible.
Well, how were you hearing doors slamming and glasses? Was it just in your head because you were scared?
Do you know? I don't think it was, but then it must have been, because I don't believe in supernatural stuff or anything anymore.
No. For sure, no.
So I feel that it was either wind, because maybe I left doors open as I ran through and as I looked for things, or whatever it was. But your mind plays tricks on you, and there's nothing worse than being in a huge building, but being the only person in that building. There's something very strange about it, and I find that more bothersome than I've been in, tunnels and inside old deserted hospitals and offices and all sorts of places. But that big dormitory, and with all the office space on my own, was the weirdest feeling. It's a strange job, and strange things happen, and you meet strange people. And I've done it for so long, Jordan. That zoo break-in, I'd have been about 7 or 8, really, and it's the first one I remember. And in theory, that's still breaking and entering. That's still physical infiltration.
Sure.
So I've got 40 years of doing it, if you count that as the first one.
That is, there's creepy stuff. Like I broke into my school once to get some books. The cops showed up. They didn't catch me. No big deal. And then, but then I broke into a former, like a closed since the 1970s mental hospital for kids and juvenile delinquents. So it was like where you got sent against your will for medical treatment, usually psychological. That was creepy because the beds were in there.
Yeah.
And it had been trashed by teenagers, you know, every year since 1971 or whatever it had closed. But like the stuff was there. So you'd walk in and there would be like a box of, I guess, IV bags or some sort of medical stuff, and then they'd be strewn all over the place. But there'd be like a gurney that was rusty and tipped over with a dirty old mattress on it. And you're just thinking like, not only is this old and the people who were here were really aggrieved at the time or really like upset at the time, but the people who've come in since, half of them are, you know, 90% are probably teenagers, but then there's been like crazy criminals and like people on the run and like homeless people that are probably sleeping for the night because it's raining. But then who knows what else? Just weird, creepy stuff. And they had underground tunnels in the building that would go from one building to another, and we went in those, and that was next level scary because now you're underground in an abandoned insane asylum. So I kind of get the feeling of when you go, I'm hearing something. I wasn't alone because I'm not a total lunatic, but you hear something, and then you realize it could be anything, it could be nothing, it could be a rat. It's probably literally like the wind blowing a piece of paper around, but it still sounds like there's just somebody behind you.
And you know, the thing is, that's so true. And then you get your pareidolia, you start to see faces in the shadows and in the smoke. But I think a lot of the time there are people who inhabit those underground spaces, those abandoned places. There are, like you say, homeless people. There are people hiding out, and there are rats and shit everywhere. And I think I just never discount. I never discount the idea of someone hiding out in a building that's a public place and sleeping there. I never do it. And I was in one place with a theatre. Oh my God, the theatre. And heard all kinds of noises, but there was other people with me, whatever, and we were looking for the office, and I looked for the office, and then I found a pile of clothes and a razor and like some sort of like plates and things, like as if someone had been eaten. We realised that someone was basically living in one of the cupboards we'd hidden in behind a sort of not a false screen, but they kind of made a screen out of janitorial stuff. And you know that they're watching and they're there. It's a very spooky thing. And often, I mean, one of the things I always say when I talk about it is that when you think someone's rumbled you, we tend not to run out. We run up to the roof and sit on the roof. And I spend a lot of time sitting on roofs. And I can tell you the spookiest story, if you like, but of the roof. But
please do. But wait, why do you run to the roof instead of running out? That seems like you'd want to get out.
Because it's counterintuitive. So security they assume that you're running away, and you can go up and you can hide. Basically, most buildings have stairs. You can go up the stairs because it'll be a fire escape. It won't be locked, and it'll never lock. We can always open most doors anyway, but those doors are very easy, and you can just hide out there, and people just don't go to the roof. So you know that if you can hide there for even half an hour, the heat will die down a little bit, and you can just kind of casually walk out. But if if the alarm's been triggered and people are looking for you, then going down and heading for the exit is exactly where they go. So it's just somewhere to hide. And in truth, I like the solitude a little bit as well. But
tell me about the creepy roof.
So, well, it was the weirdest shit. So I got on this roof. It was very, very high, middle of London. And I just thought I'd just wait this one out. So we'd been in. I'd put. So what I do is I'm paid now, just to be strictly very clear. Okay. I'm paid to test the security of a client's premises or their staff, in order to expose vulnerabilities in their security, right? So that the bad guys can't do the same thing, and so that we can educate as to what's going wrong, whether that's the persuasion methods of the people, psychology, or whether it's something to do with their physical and operational security. And I'd done this huge building in and I said the name of it then, in London, and I sort of been in this guy's office, sent myself an email from his computer, sent him an email from his computer. You owe me a pint, told you I'd get in, Jen, this type of thing. All good sort of very good natured. And then I could hear a bit. You get a building as a life. It's as an energy, and when that energy changes, sometimes that just outside the door, you sort of feel the energy. You feel things go quiet, and then a buzz of noise, and it's like a sixth sense. And I kind of felt like, I can feel that this has been too easy. As soon as you think you've done it and it's easy, you know that someone's onto you. So I thought, this has been too easy. Something's going wrong. I get a feeling that I've been rumbled and someone's on the way. So I get out. And I need somewhere to go and just lay low for a bit and let it all die down. Go up the back stairs, get up to the roof. And I sat on the roof and I was just looking, across the city. And at the time, I smoked and I got a cigarette and a lighter. And I go like this, and my lighter wouldn't work because it was quite windy. And the guy just appeared from behind me and said, "Light." And I had a
Holy
Zippo.
crap, that would scare the crap out of me.
Well, it did. I mean, I wasn't right near the edge, but shit. So would you like, and a Zippo. So I went, right. And he said, oh, it's bad for you, Jen, And I looked.
You used your name.
Yeah. I looked at him and kind of went, and was lost for words, which is not like me. And I was lost for words. And then I turned back again, he was gone. And I was stood with my back to the only door on that roof. Right. So I don't know where he went. So I was like, okay, did he jump? What, and I can't even went to the, and like the edge isn't the very edge, but like he could have fallen off and gone, nothing, couldn't find him, and never knew what that was about either.
What are you talking about right now? It sounds like you're hallucinating.
Mate, well, I would have said that, but I met him again. And I did a job in Sweden.
Okay, so he's a real person. He's not just a figment of your imagination.
He's a real person.
You think so?
I think, well, he must be, right? But he's a real person. I met him again on a job in Sweden. And just was
what the hell?
Lost for words. No.
So who is it?
Don't know.
It's some guy that works for one of your clients, though.
I think, yeah, because they knew my name. And I think, it's what I do is I'm just a private security contractor, but you make a lot of connections. I don't know, some people know where I am sometimes, I guess.
That is super, super weird. That is beyond creepy. If they were just like wanting you to know that they were still watching you, even though you thought, I got away with this. And it's like, well, hold on.
Yeah.
This random guy still knows who you are and where you are.
I've had things like, I've been in restaurants and things. I was in a restaurant in Brussels. And I was on expenses at the time. I was still doing a job, a legit job, if you like, a standard career. And I'd gone in and I'd ordered I said, I don't know, whatever you recommend. And they brought the tasting menu, but it was a really expensive restaurant. And like my expenses just would never have covered it. Mm-hmm. And I realised that when I was on like the 11th course of these exquisite, gourmet, all these, sorbet was in a rose shape. It was just that it was the most fancy thing, and I just thought, oh God, I can never pay for this on the expenses. And then I got to the end, and it was like, it's taken care of. And I was like, it's taken care of by who? And they just said they said hello. And so the whole bill was taken care of. And I wasn't on a security job at that point, so I think I've always thought that people kept tabs on me.
That is really creepy. And like, if I didn't know you, I'd be like, oh, poor thing. She's not all there. It sounds really weird and impossible.
I just think I think it's a strange career, and you meet strange people. And I think that by definition, the type of job I do invites theatre, and it invites people who take great delight in spooking me, I think.
Yeah.
Or just making me think you're not that clever, you're not undercover. But I wasn't trying to be undercover then. But we're either looking out for you or we're just letting you know that we know where you are. And I think that's something that's just been a recurring theme throughout my career, really.
Yikes. Okay. Well, that would creep me out. That would be effective for me, I think.
No, it creeped me. I mean, it did. It does.
So if y'all want to creep me out, pay for my bill at a restaurant and
it was
let's
great.
test the theory.
I mean, my friend said to me, "Oh, it could just be some guy. It could be someone sort of hitting on you." But like,
super ineffective when they keep their identity hidden.
But yeah, exactly. Well, no. I mean, what other explanation is there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it was.
So what were you doing to pay the bills then? You had a regular job and you started doing this. Was there any time where these overlapped, right? So like by day I'm doing whatever accounting thing or whatever it was, and by night I'm breaking into zoos.
So I was mostly a negotiator in my regular job.
Okay.
And because funnily enough, I was good at people and persuasion and influence and stuff. And so I was being sent all over the world to do that. And you know, I sort of enjoyed it. I mean, it was good. I had a good salary and nice colleagues and I got to travel. But then when I was away, other clients would call and say, while you're in country XYZ, you know, if you want to tag a day on, I mean, that whole instance in the house with the book and the desk and the heavies and that with the guns, I mean, that was the work job. And I got a call in the hotel that said, they actually rang me and they said, are you traveling back business class from Hong Kong? And I said, no. They said, do you want to travel back business class? Just tag on a day and do that job. And I said, yeah. So at this point, I've never really sort of said of how strange this was. It always felt very strange to me, but I had this legitimate career and I was doing like a master's degree. I was writing stuff for work. I had lots going on. But then every now and then, and increasingly frequently, I would get asked, you know, there's an extra job in this country, or can you take a diversion and do this infiltration job, write the reports, and you know, and do it. And it was money. I mean, it was good money. I didn't tell work that I was doing it. I was specifically not allowed to do any other job other than the company. But I always think they thought that was like, you can't do bar work or something at the same time as working for us without asking. And I wasn't going to ask them. So I just didn't really, I think even up to then, I thought of it as a hobby, sort of. And, you know, and it wasn't something that I felt was good for my legitimate career. And what we weren't in was the world that we're in now, where cybersecurity and privacy work is such a huge thing that there are people who do that job legitimately. I didn't know anyone else was hired to do it. Maybe people who were like, you know, spies or something maybe did similar things, but I wasn't doing that. I was just sort of being paid some money to do small, you know, I don't know, infiltrations. I didn't even call it that. I certainly didn't call it social engineering. It was just testing someone's system, testing their alarm or whatever. And I would sometimes go, I mean, there was a job I did in Brussels actually, where I did a physical infiltration on an office. I got there at 5 a.m. I did the infiltration. I had to climb down basically a fire escape on the side of a building, very high building. And then I had a meeting at like 9:30 with the regular team. You know, instead of, you know, sort of walked into breakfast, had coffee and croissant with my colleagues, and then went and did my normal day. And just as if it was nothing, really.
Would you ever work in the United States? Because I assume here you can get shot for showing up at the wrong place.
That.
Yeah.
There is. I mean, I did, but by then, what had happened by then was there were contracts and there was get out of jail free cards. You know, so you get a letter that says, you know, this is the number that you call. This is security test. And the US was always a lot ahead of Europe and the UK, certainly, in terms of that being something that was recognised and was a legitimate job and something that, you know, you could do and be kind of touched for doing it and go, well, no, it's a security test, and people would understand that. So by the time I was working in the States and even in some parts of Europe, different than I did at first, sort of Eastern Europe and places like that, it was a legitimate thing. And at least I could see that there was legal documents and things. Because I would charge a premium if someone could shoot me, or if I can get chased by a dog. If there's a possibility of guard dogs, I will charge more money. Yeah.
If it's funny. Possible for me to get killed, I'm gonna get a premium going.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of guard dogs. Love dogs.
Well, no, that's kind of the point in general, is you're not supposed to be a fan of guard dogs chasing you.
No.
I guess I would just, in the U.S., they probably have to put up bright orange signs and brief the security guy. Okay, we're going to have somebody break in. It's a single woman. Do not shoot her like you normally would today only, right? Like, here's what she looks like. No pistol whipping.
There are certain things that you can put in place that that mean that when you are caught or almost caught, you can usually diffuse the situation. Although, to be fair, there's a lot of people in America that can do that now. So I will speak about it and I will educate, but I don't necessarily work as much in America anymore, just because of and it's not just the US; it's anywhere where there is guns to be negotiated, shall we say? Or UK is the same. You know, there was a job that was national infrastructure, critical national infrastructure, and there was a chance of being,
which is what, like bridges and stuff, or
energy and defense, and you know, and that's, you know, there's chances you could be tasered, you could have the dogs and stuff like that, and all of those jobs require different layers and backup teams and B teams and everything else, because, you know, there's a real chance that you can be injured.
Right. So they probably put somebody in the security control room who's like,
the security team sometimes
can blow the whistle,
and if they know, if the whole team knows, then it's you know, it says to the client, it's pointless doing this.
Yeah, they're just going to be more careful than usual.
It's not a test. It's not a genuine test. But usually, in that national infrastructure job, it was a 4-digit sort of, if you like, a PIN code that we could give. And once that PIN code went in, they all got on the radio to stand down. I had 11 minutes to do that job. To
break into a nuclear power plant or whatever.
Well, yeah, because I had 11 minutes to get to the actual target, which they specified, because after that they had to, because they could stand down law enforcement, as in the real law enforcement, for 11 minutes, because in that 11 minutes they could keep an eye, but they said that's the longest they could give me. And after that, they'd stand them back in case, just in case, I suppose, real criminals were right behind me. Just, you know, what are the odds, right? So I had 11 minutes to do it. That was scary.
I think in the United States, those nuclear power plants and stuff, they have their own, like, armed SWAT team, essentially, that's basically on site, ready, because they're waiting for somebody to come in and try and steal the nuclear fuel, or just melt it down.
They're even armed in the UK, right? I mean, you know, or like the armed response from the UK law enforcement at that place was 2 minutes. And so I would have had, you know, 120 seconds to persuade someone that I was not a real criminal. So we had to have a PIN code.
Wow.
But that client was on site and they knew broadly where I was, to the point where they nearly gave me away several times.
Wow. I mean, I guess the core lesson here is that it doesn't really matter what security measures are in place. If there's a human element, the system has a vulnerability, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, you know. I mean, I tell a story. I got into a bank in Germany, and they said, oh, we need someone to get in, and it needs to be someone like you. It can't be the team that hired me were all huge, big military guys, with tattoos and baldy heads and things and muscles, and they just, like, they
stick out a little. Yeah.
And they said, could you try and get in? And it was biotech, so it was a fingerprint lock. And you know, and I got past it because I think I created a huge fuss. I had an arm bandage and I carried some folders and things, and I put my finger on the biotech lock and it didn't work. Security guy comes over. It's a very quiet, very fancy bank. And I swore a lot and said, you know, I can't get in. And he said, well, you try the other hand. And I said, well, I can, but, you know, the other hand's not really been used for it and tested, but I tried. And of course, it's not let me in and I'm all bandaged. And he pushed my hand down really hard to get to the fingerprint swipe, and I sort of cried out and things. And he said, oh, you know, and I swore, you know, I cursed a lot because, you know, oh, you hit my hand. And he just let me in because embarrassment sort of like, stop making this fuss. Now look at me. I mean, I don't. So, you know, I think sometimes it's using those kind of triggers. I mean, I got past the guards at the Tower of London because they were embarrassed. I spilt water all over them and kind of patted them down and stuff, and they said, "Oh, just go through." So I think it's a case of tactical adaptation, is what we call it in training. It's learning to work with what you've got and what works for you, and no, not a huge lie. Because if I was to try and make up a pretext or a lie that was massively away from who I am, it would be difficult to sustain. Lies are difficult to sustain if they're complicated. So we tend to stick with something that's plausible. And those were the type of things that worked. Yeah.
So lies are difficult if they're complicated. So What's something that's complicated versus plausible? It seems like a really dumb question, but I think obviously you wouldn't have this as one of your principles if people didn't make this mistake all the time.
Well, I think what it is people get too elaborate, and you know, you don't. It's you try and keep it as simple as you can, because if the facts are not on your side, you know, if you're creating a story in order to get past reception or to get past security, you know, you've only got 2 or 3 questions planned. You know, almost by definition, you're not living that persona. And so it's easy for it to kind of fall apart, for you to act out of character. I think the best thing to do is to stay within your character. And you know,
like
not
your real character.
Far. Yeah, and not stray too far from it, really. I mean, I wouldn't put accents on, for example. So when I have done jobs in the States, you know, they see my accent, they think I'm Irish or something.
Yeah, I was going to say you just keep this like pseudo Irish accent.
But I wouldn't attempt a US accent, you know, at all.
But you can do a US accent, right?
No, not to any.
You sure?
Not to any. I'm not going to do it.
I feel like anyone can do an American accent.
But there's a lot of different American accents. I mean, the city I'm from, there's 3 different Liverpool or Scouse accents.
You can talk like me, though. Every movie is mostly people that just talk just like me.
Right. I mean, yeah. I've already in this interview used some Americanisms that I wouldn't normally use. I wouldn't say mom. I wouldn't say, what was the other one I said?
Soccer.
Soccer. Or I say vacation, which we'd never say over here. Yeah. And I do that when I'm being interviewed in the States.
Just holiday, football, and mum.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm very worldly. So, but you're piecing, what are you doing before you get in there? You've got to have you got to have done some prep work, right? Are you just Googling the people that are going to work there? I mean, what sort of resources are you mustering to try and get in with people? I assume social media plays a part in this.
Yeah, it never used to be. Oh my God. We used to have to camp outside the target. I mean, I used to sit and do surveillance on targets for days and days and days, weeks, to find out like all the habits, because what you're looking for is the way that a group of people in a building sort of breathe. They, you know, the shortcuts they take, like they're all little hackers. You know, the building that people work in, they hack. They don't do what they're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So we'd look at that. We'd look at where did they hang out? Where did they go for a drink on a Friday, a pint on a Friday? Where did they go for a pint? Mm-hmm. Which pub? We'd look. That was what I said. I said bars, and I would never have said bars normally unless I was speaking to a US audience. And we'd do all those things, and we'd look at who spoke to who and cars they drove and everything. But now, I mean, we can just go. We can scrape social media. And we can just, somebody is talking somewhere about what's going on. Someone is posting photographs of the inside of their office, of the lanyards they wear, of the security systems that are inside the building. People are talking about colleagues. You can work out from doing a social media sweep who hates who, where the power lies in organisations. That's not necessarily a formal structure. Their attitude to hierarchy, their hobbies. I mean, it's just so. It's like I did a job in South Africa, and we went onto a sort of a safari with this ranger, and he told me that I asked if there were ostriches in South Africa, right, for some reason, and he said we had 2 in this park, and he said, and they found them when they were chicks, whatever, raised them for 3 years, did all the training, naturalized them, released them into the park, and the minute that they released them, they walked up to 2 lion and just walked up to these lion because they'd never seen lion before. And I said, they're like, oh God, there was lions again. Oh my God. I said, what happened? And he said, well, the lion tore it to pieces. I said, the lion couldn't believe that its dinner. It just walked up to it. And that was how I felt when social media became a thing. It was just like, you're telling me now, you're telling me and all the people out there who will exploit this, for criminal gain, and for, for malintent. Especially a couple of years ago, before people started to be warned about the security implications, people were putting, everything about themselves online. We had a lady who signed a contract to say that we could investigate her, and she was hiding, really. She was pretty good. She sort of hid her profiles on social media, but her children didn't. And we could see that we could connect it to her kids from photographs from... So there were photographs from her office on the corporate site. So she was sitting at a desk. On that site, there was pictures of her and her family. We could trace the surname, found the surname on social media, made 6 or 7 different connections. And we knew so much about her, not because she was careless, but because her children, teenage children, they didn't even think about what they put on there.
Isn't that how they caught El Chapo? His dumb son was like, hanging out with dad, or whatever.
But it's just, any one of us. So you can't be 100% safe. If you're connected to people, you just cannot be. And then people always ask me, well, does that mean we can't use social media? Does that mean we need to be paranoid? Well, no, it doesn't. But you do need to make decisions. The point is, it has to be a conscious decision about what we post on social media. You have to think a little bit about what could a malicious person do with that information. And then if you decide to post it, well, then, that's freedom of speech, whatever. But you have to make that decision. And I think sometimes when people realise how easy it is, there was a picture of her with a dog, right?
Uh-huh.
And we got her address, open source information, got her address, looked at the house on internet maps, if you like. And we could see that she lived in a small village and there was a vet. And we sent an email saying, there's an outstanding invoice.
Because you just kind of know she goes to that
for
vet
the treatment
so
of your
close.
animal. Well, we don't know if she did or if she didn't, but she'd be familiar with the name of the veterinarian, and she's had or has a pet. So just sheer human curiosity is going to get her to open that attachment. She did, and as soon as she did it, if we'd have been criminals, that would have been game over. So you can't, we've all got these weaknesses and these levers. And I think that's really where social media and sort of technology has come in. It's made the job quicker, easier, and deeper. We can go so deep into people's lives now, which I would have had to have done that physically when I first started out. But now we can do it remotely.
As a public figure, then am I screwed? Because there's so much information about me online. And also this show. Somebody could just get all the transcripts, and there's so many details in here that I can't hide all of this.
But that's true of any of us who are out there. You just have to make those decisions and be careful. The truth is, we've put together fake phone calls and answering machine messages, splicing together conversation from people who do podcasts and I've got video and things out there. So, you've got to think about, we're all potentially a target, but how much of a target and to what end? You've got to live your life. That's what I'd say. We just have to be more cautious than perhaps we were before.
The only sort of security protocol that I have, other than not putting a lot of personal details deliberately on there, here's our new dog, his name is this, that kind of thing. But everybody knows I've got pets and their names and my kids and their names and how old they are roughly, but I guess I don't put things like hanging out at this place, location. And I ask people when I'm hanging out in groups, I go, hey, if you're going to post anything, either post it later.
Yeah.
Tag me in it later or don't tag me at all, or don't put the location. Because early on when Foursquare first started, I've told this story a million times, so I apologize to the listener here, but when Foursquare first started, I installed it, checked in at some lounge in New York, whatever, and then a few minutes later, or a few minutes there, we're hanging out drinking a couple of cocktails, and a buddy of mine walks in, and I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? I didn't know you were going to be here. And then another person walked in and I was like, oh gosh, so-and-so's here too. And I'm like, what a weird coincidence. All the places in Manhattan. And my friend goes, well, you did post it on Foursquare, which then posts to your Twitter. And I was like, I bet you that's why this other person is here right now. We should leave. Yeah. And I uninstalled Foursquare right away because basically I was tweeting, hanging out at Mesquite Bar and Grill with 3 people that I know, and it's if anybody wants to find out where you are, all they have to do is look at your social media. They know where you're on vacation. But it's
worse
creepy.
than that. There's apps, so there's fitness apps, and people log their runs. They go jogging, and then you can more or less work out where they live, what time they're doing the runs. It's all logged. And there's been instances in the UK where there's been people who the police have got there just in the nick of time to stop people being abducted and attacked. You've got to think about particularly location. how can you put yourself at risk, and what can you do? And you know, what do you, like, you made a conscious decision. If people still want to do that, they can make conscious decisions. I actually, I had a client who was a celebrity in the UK, and his problem was, and actually it was like sort of it could have been a lot worse, but he had a stalker, a super fan. So someone, we call it a fixated individual. And you know, he's doing a show in a theatre in a specific location. And the problem is, it's the compulsion to constantly post on Instagram and everything else. And he's posting, oh, I'm going for a massage, doing for this. And that fixated individual had saw the room. He took a photograph of himself getting ready for his massage. Nothing provocative about it. But she had, she knew where he was due on stage that night. So she knew the city. And she looked at all the interior shots of like all the kind of expensive boutique.
Oh, no way.
Sort of salons in that area, narrowed it down. And by the time, and so he posted that. And by the time he had his massage, got dressed and come out, she was waiting outside. And she was everywhere he went. And, you know, the first piece of advice is, dude, you've got to do it. Stop posting it as it happens. You know, stop going, oh, this is live on Instagram. This is live on Facebook. This is live on whatever. You know, do it after the fact, or do something that obscures your location. But, you know, this, and, you know, this woman, you know, I strongly assessed was unstable.
Yeah, of course. Nothing shows true love like showing up to someone's massage uninvited after they posted about it on the internet. Right. That is so creepy. That's somebody who like kills you because you're meant to be together or some weird
like
stuff
misery.
Like that, right?
That's how it almost makes me think when we have those cases, and sometimes it feels a bit like misery. And you know, I'm not, you know, sometimes people just need genuine help, but for the celebrities to say, but I need, you know, I've built up this following, I need to keep content fresh. You know,
post it a week later.
Yeah.
No one's gonna care. Post it a day later. No one's gonna care. Seriously.
Or
wait
just
4 days.
Or just, or maybe, you know what? Maybe don't post it.
Yeah.
But you know, especially if you're in that situation. I mean, there's been lots of situations like that where. So I guess that's where the physical infiltration is kind of what we spoke about. But a lot of the job has been about looking at something from a criminal perspective. You know, we spoke a bit about some of the jobs that, you know, I guess in hindsight maybe weren't what I call legal, or perhaps weren't. But like
strictly speaking, not legal.
Perhaps. But you know, mostly what I'm hired to do now, and hired by, you know, very high authorities, is to look at something with that streetwise, that street smart criminal perspective, but being someone who isn't a criminal, and say, this is what I think could be done with that information, or this is how I would get into that building, or this is how I take that picture off the wall, or whatever. And you know, there's value in that, and I feel just really lucky that I get to do that legitimately, and protect people now.
How much does it cost to have someone break into my office and make sure it's secure? Just sort of ballpark.
Depends. I mean, it really depends. It depends. I had, like, obviously during lockdown, it stopped for a little while, for about a month in the UK. I stopped getting asked to do that. And then the job started to come back in. And it depends, you know, the answer is, it depends. Do you have guard dogs? You know, is it a shared building? Dogs. Is it if it's a standard straightforward job, it'd be a different price point than if it was a more secure facility, or if it was a trickier puzzle to crack. Sometimes...
So what's the price range? Is it like, you know, you get the lockdown special, but like beyond that, what's the price range? A couple $1,000 all the way up to what?
Yeah, exactly that. That's the range.
Okay. Yeah, got it. So whatever I said is just whatever that's fine.
Said, that's
got it. Okay.
It depends. It really does depend. And now the industry, I mean, you can get plenty of people who break into a standard office and do a perfectly good red team pen test for a lot less than I would charge to do the same thing. Because I've been doing it for a long time. I'm not fit anymore. You know, I don't run as quick as I used to run. I'm older. You know, I don't need to be doing that all the time. I do a few a year to keep my hand in the game. But now mostly I speak about it. I talk about it on stage, at conferences and stuff, and I educate, and I do the jobs that I think are interesting or exciting or important. But I don't do that many standard jobs anymore, because loads of people, younger people than me, can do it now.
You ever break into an office and like eat the birthday cake that's in the fridge for someone's...
Do you know, I've said this before. There's things I would say, right, when I educate people to do this. I say, you know, never eat anything. Never eat anything that anyone sends to you in the post, and certainly never eat anything unless, you know, because why would you do that? But I was so hungry. I broke into this office, and I do it every year, same client, same job. They never fix what I tell them to fix. It is fish in a barrel, right? And two things happened 2 years running. So the first year, I'm in there, it was a stormy night and loads of the office windows were wide open. Don't know why they were, it seemed strange. I'm walking through and I heard a cat. And, you know, like I said, like we've said, am I imagining that? No. I'm not. And I could see a cat and it was sitting on the, well, more or less on the window.
Don't tell me you ate the cat. That's just disgusting.
But I felt compelled to rescue it because I thought it's going to jump. Like, it's stupid, really, but I like cats. Put it in my backpack and zipped it up, and it was peeing. And on the stairs on the way down, I ran into one of the people from the office. And she said, and like, and you know, I'm all ready with my pretest. I was like, oh, hi. Hi? I said, oh, hi, I'm just in procurement working late. I'm with, you know, Jordan's team. And she went, okay. And then she went, and I went, like that.
You smell like cat
and
pee.
she went, have you got a cat in your rucksack? And I went, look, I've not been honest with you. I said, I'm actually not working for procurement, I'm pest control. And then I said, thinking on your feet, I said, and I'm taking this to the lab. And sort of like, thank you, Barbara, or whatever she was called, and walked off. And like, I laughed and laughed and laughed with the team when I got back. The lab, it's a cat. How am I pest control? What lab? What are you talking about? I just, you know, and she just kind of, I always think she must have thought, what the hell?
Need to make sure it's a real cat.
But I couldn't have carried it down. I had to put it in the bag, and I just threw it and the bag away because it stank like, and just let it go in the car park. But, you know, and then the second year, then the next year, so it would have been about the third or fourth year I did that office. The next year, I'd been waiting for that long for them all to go home. God knows these people not got lives. Waiting for ages for everyone to go home. They all go home, and there was someone's obviously had a birthday celebration, huge cake on the desk. They must have just left it to clear up. You know, the next day, I went past and just ate a piece of this cake, which is really unprofessional and bad.
Like someone's birthday cake for the following
but
day.
Obviously, the whole office had some. I didn't eat their whole cake.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like a new cake, like happy birthday, Janice. They didn't want to ruin the surprise, so they bring it in the morning, and they're like, we're just gonna sing on Monday morning, and then they bring out the cake, and it says happy birthday, Ja, and then there's just a piece cut out of the side.
But I was just really hooked because one of the things that we say is you certainly don't drink anything before a job because what we say, and this is very British, teas mean wheeze. Right, so you do not want to need to go to the bathroom a lot. So I tend not to drink, but I have some water, a little tiny bit, in case I cough or anything. So you tend not to do that. And you know, when you're thirsty, you think you're hungry. And I've been there for ages, and I just was hungry. It was just there, and there was just this slice. But I've joked about it before in interviews because it's the last thing I would ever recommend anyone did. But I just did, yeah. I mean, there's loads of stupid stuff like that. The stuff that happens is crackers. I mean, I was in Germany, supposed to get into an office, and I sat talking to Rain, sat on a fire escape, and my phone was just getting covered in rain. And I had detail, and just in water, like it was raining so hard, and I was just like, oh my God, and I'm thinking my phone's going to get wrecked. It's an iPhone, it's going to get covered in water and whatever. And I couldn't grip anything. I'm not going to go into too much detail because the client will know who I mean, but I couldn't, all the stuff, all my kit to get in, I couldn't have. So I knew that my team were inside and were going to come and get me if I didn't appear. So I just sat on this fire escape, and there was lightning and thunder all around the building. And I just sat there with my phone sort of shielding it from the rain and just waited for them to let me in. And I remember then thinking, I do often think that this is the last time I'm doing this frigging job. I remember thinking, I'm not doing this again. I retire. I'm always saying I'll resign because some weird stuff happens, and then I never do. You
have a calling card, like you know that movie Home Alone where the guys are like, the wet bandits, we leave the faucets on every place where we go.
Yeah.
You have anything like that?
Yeah. I have a little silver octopus, little charms, silver octopus charms.
It's like some James Bond shit right there.
Oh, it's not. It's just it's just theatre. You can't do this job without a sense of theatre. I mean, there's plenty of people who don't, but I got taught to do it. So I had other mentors over the years, and one guy told me he leaves a knot. So it's a piece of red string, and he just used to tighten a knot and leave this just tiny piece of red thread with a knot in it on the desk. I just thought that was so cool. And then I thought, I never do anything like that. It'd be really cool if I just did something that, like, if the client didn't believe I'd been in the office and, before I give the whole presentation, show the photographs, if I was on a call like this, or if I was stood in front of them presenting, I could say, well, if you just look under your desk, and, there's like this little octopus, like blue tacked underneath the desk. And so I thought I'd try it. And I did it, and I did get to say it, and they were like, oh God, that's really cool. And then I just did it ever since. And it's weird because I ended up leaving them in lots of places then.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
Because if you go back and they're still there, it's kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, like you go back to the Roman Colosseum 20 years later, and there's your little blue octopus up on one of the columns.
And I saw something similar. There was a film that influenced that as well. There was a film called The Last Emperor, and he finds that he had a pet cricket, and it was in the throne, and he was the only person that knew it was there. Like 40 years later. I remember thinking that was cool and thinking it was a similar thing. It's not. It's just a distraction now.
Yeah, it's a distraction, but it is cool. Does the octopus have any meaning, or is it just like, I need charms in bulk, and the only ones they have are an octopus and a little race car?
No, I think octopus is an interesting animal, probably an alien.
Yeah, they're smart and they're delicious. That's a rare
they
combination.
Are, and I can't. Yeah, I really try not to eat calamari, because I think they're so smart. But yeah, no, I just think it's an interesting animal, and it probably shouldn't be here. That's what I think.
You think it's an alien? The octopus?
There's evidence to suggest that a part of its structure has potentially got influences from something other than Earth. I don't know. I'm not a biologist, but there was something about it, and I thought that shouldn't be on this planet. That's too smart. It's too weird. It shouldn't be. And the idea of something that shouldn't be there struck me.
I like that. I can get behind that. We'll have to have you back, because I know you're writing a book. I want to talk about con men. I want to get into scams and social engineering and how these different things work from a mechanical level. But this is fun. Rarely do I get a chance to talk to somebody who breaks into places for a living and is not already in prison. Although I'm trying to find more and more of those.
Yeah, days. Well, I mean, the night is young. But no, I mean, I always say we never broke anything. I never took anything. And a lot of
just some birthday cake.
Just a birthday cake, sue me. But other than that, no. It's by request.
Jenny, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. This is really interesting. Like I said, we'll have you back. We'll go in deeper on scams, cons, social engineering.
Awesome.
I know you had some other topics that I don't even want to give away because they're like kind of esoteric and cool and fun, and we'll definitely do those next time you come back.
Yeah, I didn't mean to be esoteric. I feel like there was an awful lot of kind of spooky stories there, which you managed to get out to me. Which normally I try not to talk about it too much in case people think I'm genuinely,
a Looney Tune. Yeah. Well, too late now. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
No, it's been great. Thanks for having me.
Like I said, we have to have Jenny back. She's got a lot more to offer. In the meantime, I do hope you subscribe to the Jordan Harbinger Show. You can find most of our episodes in the podcast feed. That's in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your shows. Now click here for an interview with Guy Raz from How I Built This. Click here for an interview with hostage negotiator Chris Voss. And click here to subscribe to the channel.